Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. We are going to talk about the subject of game schooling. I'm going to go over what game schooling is and what it could look like for your family, regardless if you are an unschooler or if you are a traditional homeschooler. So, if you're new here, I am Tanya Johnson. I'm the founder of Helping Hearts Homeschool, where I help parents and grandparents put the joy back into their homeschool experience. If you like more of a behind the scenes look of homeschooling, you're welcome to follow along on all of our socials. And then you can head over to helpingheartshomeschool.com if you'd like to check out all the homeschool freebies and the homeschool resources we have over there for you. Now, just to give you a little bit of a backstory when it comes to games and kind of the role that they played in my family as a kid as well as an adult, I want to kind of take you back in time just a little bit for a little bit of storytelling. So, when I was 9, my dad passed away. My mom was a single mom of 5 kids at that point. I was the oldest, and then my little sister was 2, and there are 3 boys in between that. Now, before he died, we were already below the poverty line. Once he died, that spiraled us into going deeper and deeper and deeper down the financial catastrophe rabbit hole, I guess you could put it. In about a year, my mom was declared permanently disabled. She got sick with a bone disease. So we were living off of $1,500 per month. That included food stamps for a family of 6. Now, regardless how big your family is, I think you can agree probably $1,500 is not a lot of money. But when you have 5 little kids, it's really not a lot of money. So, one reason we played so many games is because it was free. My mom would find games at thrift stores and yard sales and wherever she could find games. Sometimes they did not have all the pieces, but we didn't know that. We were little and we liked to play games. And we would sit around at the table, we'd lay on the floor, we'd hang out on the couch, we'd do it in the front yard. Wherever we could find a spot, we would play games together. So oftentimes we would pair our game playing with camping trips. We would go for 2 to 3 weeks at a time because my mom didn't have a job. She was permanently disabled. And we would go out to the lake and set up camp. These trips happened several times a year, and you combine playing tons of games with leaky tents, a broken down white kidnapper van, as all of my friends would call it, all the chips and hot dogs that we could eat, and endless hours of fishing. And you make up kind of the bulk of my core memories as a child. And I'll tell you, we loved these trips. I knew growing up that we did not have a lot of money, but I didn't realize how little money we had because we were always doing, in my mind, these extravagant, fun fishing trips. And we were constantly playing games around the table with each other. We had a lot of fun and a lot of laughter in our home. Now, y'all that know my story, you know there was also a lot of bad times and a lot of trauma that happened as a child. But I'm a full believer to focus on the whole big picture, not just nitpick the good or nitpick the bad. So today I'm sharing with you some of the amazing good memories in my childhood. And I can honestly say that attributes back to my mom because she got very resourceful and figured out how to let us have really good childhood memories that didn't cost hardly any money. Now, during college, when I would go home to visit, my mom would plan these camping trips during the times I was going to come to visit because she knew how much we all like to get together as a family. Now, what I did on one of these, my little brother was graduating high school. I had just graduated college. And so I brought my boyfriend, who's now my husband, home. And we went to his graduation, and then we went on a several day long camping trip. And I am just thinking he is going to think this is like the most awesome thing ever. Well, long story short, he ended up sleeping in his car. He wouldn't sleep in the tent. He does have some back issues. Back then, it was not 100% because of the back issues and more because he didn't want to sleep in the tent, which is totally fine. He doesn't like playing games. So we spent hours in the tent playing games. We spent hours at picnic tables when it was pouring down rain playing games, waiting for the rain to cease so we could go fishing. We spent hours out fishing on the bank. Now, he was a very good sport about all of this. He didn't tell me until years later that he honestly hated those trips. He grew up in an upper middle class home. Games weren't a super big part of their life. They did do a lot of video games, but that's just not something they did. They had money. They went to Disney. They went and took all the fun family vacations. So they didn't necessarily have to create ways to entertain themselves that didn't cost very much money. So he was not super impressed with our way of living. However, like I said, he was a very good sport about it. He played the games, he was never rude about any of it. But again, years later, when I brought up taking camping trips like that with our family, it was like, I don't really want to do that. Now he'll go camping with like a camper and that kind of stuff. He's not big into fishing. We just grew up in two very different worlds. Now, fast forward about a decade later, we had our miracle baby. And at this point, she was like 4 or 5. I knew I wanted to create those core memories with her. I knew I wanted games to be a big part of our household. I also knew it was going to look a little different than when I was a kid because we were in two whole different circumstances. And that's okay. Playing games doesn't have to look the same for every family. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Now, one thing I found real quick is that most of the games for little kids I really disliked. I didn't want to spend hours playing Candyland and Chutes and Ladders. So I kind of made it my mission to find games that were family friendly, but also ones that the adults would enjoy just as much as the kids. It was highlighted over on the blog if you want to go see. I've got a whole list of games that we play. I'm going to pop just a couple here up on the screen. This brand is called Grandpa Beck's, and they have amazing games that are geared towards families versus just geared towards kids. So I can tell you my 8-year-old daughter loves it just as much as the 20-year-old couple that we met a few weeks ago that we've invited over to play some games. And they love sitting and playing these games as well. So everyone can understand it. There's enough strategy to where it's fun for the adults, but it's simple enough to where it's still fun for the kids. And then because we have so many games now, we have affectionately become known as the game family. If we invite you over for dinner, we're probably going to end playing some games. If you invite us over to your house, chances are you're going to ask us to bring games with us. If you're a kid stuck on a bus ride with me, you're coming to me saying, Miss Tanya, do you have a game in your purse? Because I usually have a travel-friendly game in there. It's become somewhat of a joke, but we love it. Honestly, we love being the game family. We love knowing that wherever we go, we get to bring a little bit of fun with us. Now, we are going to get into specifically game schooling, but just playing games in general. Here are a few reasons why every family should make game time a part of their normal family activities. So games are going to help you and your family improve communication skills. You have to work together in order to play majority of games. It'll help your little ones learn how to follow directions. So if you can only place a red card on a red card, then you can only place a red card on a red card. If they're not listening and they throw a blue card down on top of a red one, they're not going to win. So this forces my daughter to pay attention and follow directions when we're sitting down to play a game. It helps them develop critical thinking skills and strategization. So this is something my daughter is still not 100% on yet, but she is getting much better at strategizing, where we'll be playing a game of Monopoly Deal, and she is the first one to sit there and steal property from somebody. It also teaches strong listening skills, because again, when you're playing with a group of 5 or 6 people, you've got to listen and know when it's your turn, who's trying to take money from you, who's giving you a card, whatever the case is, whatever game you're playing. And then my favorite is it helps them develop good sportsmanship. So usually they're going to lose. Especially as they're little kids learning how to play some of these games, they're going to get used to losing, and they're going to get used to understanding it's just a game. It's not that big of a deal. In life, there's going to be lots of situations where there can only be 1 or 2 winners. If it's not you, it's okay. You don't need to cry about it. You don't need to throw a fit. You don't need to stomp. You need to lose graciously. And then also, you need to learn to win graciously. Now, this is something that sometimes we have a little issue in our family because we are very competitive. We all know how to lose graciously, but sometimes when we win, we can rub it in the other person's face. And that's something that we as adults really have to watch, because my daughter can pick up on that. And just at home, when we're all bantering back and forth, I really don't see it as a big deal. I don't mind that she does it. But what I don't want to happen is her to play a game with a group of friends, and then she wins and she kind of rubs it in their face. Chances are there's going to be at least one kid in that group that isn't a good loser, and they're going to freak out even more because now she's kind of mocking them. So we always have that conversation as well. It's okay to do it at home when we're all doing it and we're all having fun. Sorry, I'm pretty sure I just hit my mic and it made a lot of noise. But when we're all, doing it and having fun, but it's not okay to have that same spirit outside of the home. We want to make sure we're always a gracious loser and a gracious winner, because you never know who is in your front. I need to not have my mic right in front of me because I keep hitting it. You never know who's going to be in your friend circle playing games with you. Now, when we first incorporated games into our home, I had zero expectation of game schooling. I just knew I wanted to play games for like the fun aspect of it. Now that changed when my daughter could not get the concept of phonics. I broke down, I bought my first educational game, and as you can see, there were no more tears. Not only did she love playing, which was really just practicing her phonics skills, but she actually learned how to read by us doing those extra practice sessions in the form of game schooling. So that was the first of many educational games that we bought. We have done games for telling time, we have done games for multiplication. We have a Spanish curriculum that we go through specifically because they have so many games that go along with the curriculum. And again, if you head over to the blog that corresponds with this, and by the way, to get to the blog, all you've got to do is go into the Homeschool Summit's Facebook page. The Homeschool Humor Facebook page. The post that I put up this morning has the link to the blog that'll give you a little bit more details in a minute. And then it's also going to contain a list of all of our favorite games with links so you can order them directly from Amazon if you want to, as well as a few different curriculum options we use specifically because they incorporate game schooling. Okay, so what is game schooling? You hear the term thrown around a lot, and there's probably different things that pop in your head when you hear the term game schooling. One thing that popped in my head when I first heard this was, okay, so you don't actually do school, you just sit around and play games, and you call it school. And honestly, I have run into homeschoolers that literally have told me, oh, we played Uno today. That's enough schooling. And I'm not talking like a once, we have a bad day, you don't get a lot done. I get it. We have all been there. But consistently, you play Uno for 20 minutes every day, and that's like all the school that you do. So in my mind, game schooling was honestly kind of a joke. In reality, game schooling is just using games to enhance the learning experience. That's it. There is not a right or wrong way to do this. You might have a lot of game schooling in your homeschool, and you might have a little bit. I think we're probably somewhere in between. So I'm going to give you some ideas on how to incorporate game schooling if you are a traditional homeschooler like we are. Now, when I say traditional homeschool, all I mean by that is we do use a regular curriculum. We have workbooks just like most homeschoolers do, but we also incorporate that game schooling aspect to make it as fun as possible. Now, in addition to the information that I'm giving you right now, if you head over to the corresponding blog, you can grab the complete guide to game schooling, and it'll walk you through how to incorporate some of these things in your own home. Let's go over 3 ways to incorporate game schooling into your routine without ditching all of the workbooks. Now, the first way you can do this is just simply set a goal. How many minutes of game schooling do you want to do on a regular basis? So you can do this daily or weekly. The goal that I had for a long time is I wanted to do an hour a day of game schooling or 7 hours a week. Sometimes it really was an hour a day. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was 30 minutes here and there. And then on a Saturday, we'd play for like 3 or 4 hours. So there's not a right or wrong way of how to incorporate those minutes into your school. But if you don't go into it with a plan, you probably won't execute very well. So set a plan of how many minutes you want to play. And I would start small. I probably wouldn't start with 7 hours if you've not ever done a lot of game playing in your home. Maybe start with 30 minutes once a week or an hour once a week. And sit down, play some games with your kids. Notice some of the positive benefits that are coming from gaming. And then you can up your hours if you want to. Now, number 2 is replacing worksheets. And this is actually how we game school now. So, for example, when I sit down on either Saturday or Sunday to plan out my next homeschool week, if I I know my daughter's going to have a multiplication, review page that day. Instead of doing a multiplication review page, we will play a multiplication game instead. So this is a great job of breaking up the monotony of book work. A lot of kids don't like doing review pages because they feel like, Mom, I already know the material. Why do I have to do this? Well, it is important to keep reinforcing those skills. I get it. I don't want to sit down and do what I would call busy work either. So when we do the extra practice times, we absolutely ditch the worksheets and pop in 30 minutes or so of a game instead. And then maybe we're not doing a review worksheet, but we're studying a specific thing. I'll pop out and do a 15 to 30 minute game at the end of our school day that reinforces whatever we learned. So let's say that we are learning sentence structure in language arts. I may pop out a sentence building game at the end of that just for a little extra fun practice once she has learned the concept. We do that with math. We have a fun chemistry game that we like to play that really is just logic. But because it is labeled as a science game, we'll typically play that during our science hour, especially if we're talking about anything to do with chemistry. So really just incorporating games that have to do with whatever your kid's learning for that week. Now, the third way that I have, and we do this as well, is game school breaks. So we do school year round, which gives us a little bit more flexibility to take off of our normal school and have a day where we play games all day. We have done this for a day, we've done it for a couple of days. We're actually doing it for 2 weeks as we speak, starting tomorrow. My mom came into town yesterday morning. We only see her once every 2 to 3 years. We live a lot of miles apart. And I just told you, I grew up very, very poor. We will typically pay for her to come down and visit us. Now, up until recently, it's been every 2 to 3 years. This time it was about 1.5. And I think we're going to start making it every year. Now, don't tell my husband. We're not 100% fully on board with that plan yet. But I am going to do my best to make it every year because she's getting older. I'm getting older. You know, as you get older, you start to realize how precious time is. So I definitely don't want to take any of that for granted. So I think we're going to start doing it every year. So because she's here, instead of doing normal school for the next 2 weeks, because remember, my mom loves games as much as I do, we are going to do game schooling for 2 entire weeks, which means we're probably going to spend several hours every day playing educational and non-educational games, because even non-educational games like Monopoly, for example, would not be considered educational, but it is. Like there's math involved, there's definitely communication skills, there's bartering skills if you play like we do, because we make friend-to-friend trades. Yahtzee is another one we love to play. Any kind of word game my mom loves. So all of that are going to be educational for my daughter. And then even the silly fun games like maybe apples to apples, you're still practicing reading skills and vocabulary. And then games like Uno and Nuts About Mutts and Cover Your Assets, you're practicing how to strategize. So you're getting a lot of real life practice out of these games, even if they're not quote unquote educational games. Now, as I'm filming this, like I said, we're going into 2 weeks of game schooling. As you're watching this, we did our game schooling about 2 weeks ago because I believe the summit is the beginning of June. My mom is leaving the middle of May. So she's here for about 2 weeks. So on the blog, I've included a few pictures from our game schooling time just to kind of show you what to expect in your own game school. So I've got two final thoughts to leave with you. And that is one, every family should be playing games. Again, I listed the reasons why. And two, game schooling can fit into any homeschool schedule. So in the comment section, let me know which one of those 3 points fits the best into your homeschooling. Is it best or easiest for you to set a goal and just do gaming once or twice a week and hit a certain amount of minutes? Is it easy to loop it in with some of your school according to what subjects you're studying for the day? Or is it easiest to take a day or two off or even a week or a holiday season or whatever and just focus on playing games? What is the easiest way to incorporate game schooling into your homeschool day? Just a reminder, head on over to the blog. You can see all of the games listed by subject. So if you're looking for a language arts game, I've got a whole list for you. If you're looking for math or science or reading or whatever it is. And then I also have a ton of other homeschool freebies linked on that blog for you as well. So if you're looking for unit study planners or if you're looking for free meal planners, I have an organizational mini course on there for free if you're looking to gain a little bit more control of your time. So go ahead and go check all of those out. And if you like this kind of content, you can subscribe to the Helping Hearts Homeschool TV over on YouTube. And I will see you next week in a new video.